Piper slammed her test paper onto my desk. A perfect score, exactly 1 point higher than mine. "I'm going to take everything you have," Piper whispered, leaning in so close. Her breath ghosted against my ear. Her voice dripped with aggression. "Starting with your rank and ending with your man." I didn't even bother to look up. I just uncapped my red pen and circled the single error on my own exam paper. Out in the hallway, Wells was leaning against the door frame. He was the kind of rich, devastatingly handsome asshole that parents warned their daughters about. The school's most notorious nightmare. Piper sauntered over to him, flipping her hair over one shoulder. "I'm the new number one. Need a private tutor?" Wells's gaze sliced through the air to find me. A predatory smirk played on his lips. "Sure," he murmured. A collective gasp rippled through the corridor. My loyal guardian had just publicly defected. But they missed the way his knuckles turned bone white as he gripped the door frame. They didn't know Wells's secret. He only smiled that gently. When he was preparing to drag someone down to hell, Piper thought she was the main character. Me, I was just waiting for her to self-destruct. Within her first week, Piper had become a celebrity. Why? Because she did the impossible. She beat me, the untouchable academic god, by exactly 1 point. I stared down at my papers, a near-perfect aggregate score, and took a sip of water, the cool liquid sliding down my dry throat. I meticulously logged every mistake into my notebook. Never again. Mia, my desk mate, was practically drooling over her. "Piper is insane. I heard Stanford basically begged her to commit early. Why would she even deign to slum it here?" God knows Piper seemed to have it out for me from day one. Even during the morning announcements, when the principal broadcasted her achievements, her eyes were locked on mine, smug, cold. She walked up to my desk, bending down until we were face to face. Her expression was pure mockery. "Before I came here, I heard the legend of Hadley was untouchable. Looks like the rumors were exaggerated. You can't compare a diamond to a rhinestone. Hadley, a rhinestone." I looked at my near-perfect score. I begged to differ. Of course. Piper's little power trip didn't last long because she saw him. Her eyes lit up like she just spotted a designer bag on sale. Wells was waiting by the classroom door. He stood there tall and effortlessly imposing, looking like a model off duty. He ignored her completely. His dark eyes found me. "Nerd," he said, his voice low. "Let's go home. Wells and I have history. The kind that goes back to shared playpens and diapers." I was the academic weapon, perpetually ranked number one. Wells, he was the guy consistently fighting for dead last. I was obsessed with excellence. Even when we hung out, 90% of my brain power was dedicated to deriving physics formulas. So he called me nerd. But I knew better. I knew the way his tongue curled around that word. Heavy and thick with a lingering, suffocating tenderness. It reminded me of the time he lost control. The memory hit me like a physical blow, while shoving me against the wall. His body caging mine, his breath hot against my neck. "Miss Perfect," he had rasped, his voice rough. "Do you have any idea? If you directed even a fraction of this fanaticism for school toward me, I'd lose my fucking mind." Now Piper stood there stronger, better, and from the jump. She was gunning for Wells. She stepped into his personal space with terrifying confidence, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Wells, let me tutor you. What do you say?" Wells looked at her, blinking slowly, a look of faint confusion. Piper pointed a manicured finger at her own chest. "I'm the one they just announced on the loudspeaker, the new number one. Trust me, I have the skills." Hearing that, Wells lifted his gaze. He locked eyes with me across the corridor. Recognition flashed in his dark irises, followed immediately by a sharp, teasing glint. He was laughing at me. "Look at you, Hadley. Losing your touch." My jaw tightened. I looked away, feigning indifference. But my peripheral vision betrayed me. I couldn't stop watching. Wells lowered his lashes, looking down at Piper with a voice dipped in honey. "Okay." Piper beamed. She flashed a bright, toothy grin, showing off those cute little canine teeth. her eyes sparkling with victory. Beside me, Mia inhaled sharply. Wells just agreed. Wait. I thought you two were endgame. God, this Piper girl. She really takes it all. Top grades. And the hot guy behind us, Justin, chimed in, leaning back in his chair. Gotta admit, though, they look good together, like a power couple born to be together. So naive, the corner of my lip quirked up. I rested my chin in my palm, a small laugh escaping my throat. They didn't know Wells. Not really. That gentleness, that calculated softness, that was the face he wore. Right before he slaughtered an obstacle in my path. He looked pure, harmless, polite. It was a fatal camouflage. His best trick, Wells wasn't a prince. He was the maddest dog in the yard. And his only command, his singular purpose in life was to guard me. Piper, I admit, good. But if Wells is already obsessed with me, do you really think your little strategy guide stands a chance? That's right. Piper is a player. Not in the dating sense. In the literal gamified sense. Her objective, to conquer. Wells maxes out his love meter. Once that bar hits 100%, she wins. Game over. In the original script, I'm the villain, the toxic childhood friend, the evil ex. Before we even dated, the narrative dictates that once Piper arrives, I'm supposed to spiral into a jealous rage and commit unspeakable acts of sabotage. But that was the original outline. The author stopped writing the moment Piper appeared. The story stalled. And in that silence, I woke up. The trajectory of this world shifted the second I opened my eyes. Honestly, it's laughable. Before Piper showed up, I didn't even love Wells. Not really. My vision was tunneled on one thing. The Ivy League Wells. And I never happened because I wouldn't let it happen. I used to feed him that classic line, feigning innocence. High school is for building a resume. Wells, let's get into Harvard first. Then we can talk about us. The book describes me as a sharp-tongued dilettante, the untouchable valedictorian. I look down on him, the rich, aimless delinquent with questionable morals, while simultaneously stringing him along, because his family's name carried weight. That's how I became his moonlight. His obsession, the one thing money couldn't buy. According to the plot, Piper's arrival triggers my insecurity. I'm supposed to scramble for his attention, only to realize he's being healed by her bubbly sunshine energy. The book got one thing right. I didn't like Wells enough to warrant that kind of madness. So why would the plot demand I become a psycho over a guy I barely tolerated? It didn't make sense. Because the Wells I know wouldn't be seduced by a cheap trick. Like Piper. Wells is unhinged and frankly, so am I. Piper, I hope you're ready. You aren't dealing with a high school romance anymore. You're facing two psychopaths. The next day, Piper cornered me. She leaned in close, her expression dripping with fake sweetness and ambiguity. Wells told me something interesting yesterday, she whispered, a smug curve to her lips. He said, I'm like the sunset. I'm blinding. He's already starting to fall for me. So if you know what's good for you, Hadley, you'll back off. I looked at her, struggling to keep a straight face. Piper was undeniably pretty. She was loud, bright, and aggressive. She certainly resembled a sun. But there was one tiny detail she missed. Wells hated the sun. He had severe solar dermatitis growing up. If anyone gifted him anything sun-themed, paintings, keychains, plushies, he incinerated them. He literally destroyed them. Except for that one sun pendant I gave him years ago. He didn't know that was for me. I dipped my head, a short, sharp laugh escaping my throat. He wasn't flirting with her. He was treating her like a pathogen. His subtext wasn't you light up my world. Stay 93 million miles away from me or I will break out in a rash. Piper's brow furrowed. What are you laughing at? I smoothed my expression into a mask of polite indifference. Nothing. Different worlds. Different languages. Good luck with that. Piper bristled. She could feel my dismissal and it pricked her ego. Her voice dropped, losing the sugary coating. I'm going to step on you, Hadley. I'm going to take everything you think you own. Start accepting your fate now. She paused for effect. That includes your ranking. And that includes Wells. She looked triumphant, eyes crinkling as if she could already see me crying in a gutter. I didn't even bother lifting my eyes to meet hers again. I hugged my textbook to my chest and brushed past her shoulder. We'll see. So, what if she had a cheat code? Academics was my turf. I didn't get here by luck. Got here by bleeding over textbooks at 3 a.m. while everyone else was sleeping. It would take more than a few threats to rattle me. Just you wait, Piper hissed behind me. Before the second round of midterms, the school hosted the annual fall gala. At a prep school like this, the gala was mandatory. It was a massive production, a night for the seniors to flex and the underclassmen to party. Usually, this had nothing to do with me. As Wells said, I was a nerd. I didn't dance. I had zero interest in singing. I was invisible in these settings. Wells was the opposite. Nights like this were his kingdom. He was the finale, the main event. When the atmosphere in the auditorium hit its peak, the lights cut out. A single stark spotlight sliced through the darkness, landing on him. Wells stood center stage, tall and devastating in a fitted tuxedo. He sat at the grand piano. His fingers didn't just play. They danced across the keys, lively and graceful. He looked out at the audience with eyes like deep, dark pools resembling a young god. The thunderous applause that followed was entirely for him. I lowered my gaze. I finally stopped reviewing my AP English notes. I snapped the binder shut. I was in the front row. I had the perfect view of him. Every year from elementary school to now, this stage belonged to Wells. And every year right before he went on, he pinned me with that liquid, shimmering gaze. When I'm done, Hadley, you give me flowers first. No one else. Tonight was no different. The final notes of the piano faded into the air. I let out a soft chuckle, grabbing the potted fern I'd meticulously picked out. Not roses, not lilies. A fern sharp, resilient, just like us. I headed backstage. But before I could step into the wings, I heard her. Wells, you are incredible out there, Piper. Her voice was bubbly, high-pitched, and intense. I pulled back the heavy velvet curtain just an inch. Wells was leaning against the brick wall, swallowed by the backstage shadows. Piper was practically climbing him. She had thrown her arms around him, burying her face into his chest with zero hesitation. It was too dark to see his expression. I stepped through the curtain, walking silently toward them. As the lighting shifted, I saw what she was holding. A bouquet of sunflowers. Piper's cheeks were flushed pink. She completely ignored my arrival, batting her eyelashes at him as she unleashed the full force of her charm. Sunflowers follow the sun, Wells, remember? Wells stared at the bouquet in her hands, his expression unreadable in the dim backstage light. I watched from the shadows. The potted fern still clutched against my chest, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. Piper waited, her smile unwavering, expectant. Then Wells reached out. His fingers brushed against the bright yellow petals. And for a split second, I saw it. The way his jaw tightened. The way his eyes went dead flat. Piper didn't notice. She was too busy basking in her own brilliance. Wells took the bouquet, his movements careful, deliberate. Sunflowers, he repeated, his voice soft, almost tender. How thoughtful. Piper practically glowed. I knew you'd understand, she gushed, stepping closer, her hand resting on his arm. They represent devotion, loyalty, following the one you love wherever they go. Just like I'll follow you, Wells. I almost laughed out loud. She had no idea. She was handing him a bouquet of his worst nightmare, wrapped in the prettiest paper she could find, and calling it love. Wells's gaze drifted past her, locking onto mine in the darkness. His lips curled. Just a fraction. Just enough for me to see. Then he turned back to Piper, his face a mask of polite interest. You're right, Piper. Sunflowers are very meaningful. He lifted the bouquet to his nose, inhaling deeply. I'll treasure this. Piper beamed. her victory complete. She had no idea she was holding a ticking time bomb. The next few weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Piper escalated her campaign, each move more calculated than the last. She sat next to Wells in every class, her notes perfectly aligned with his, her laughter perfectly timed to his jokes. She brought him coffee every morning, his order memorized to the letter. She wore his jacket when the classroom got cold, her shoulders brushing against his, her scent mingling with his. She was playing the long game, building trust, creating intimacy, wearing him down layer by layer. And Wells played along. He accepted her coffee with a smile. He let her borrow his notes. He laughed at her jokes, his eyes crinkling at the corners, his charm dialed up to maximum. The school was convinced. Hadley's reign is over. I heard in the hallways. Piper and Wells are the new power couple. Even Mia looked at me with pity. You okay, Hadley? I know this must be hard. I was fine. Better than fine. Because I knew what they didn't. Every night, Wells came over to my house. We sat in my room. The door locked, the curtains drawn. And he told me everything. She tried to hold my hand today, he said, sprawled across my bed, his arm thrown over his eyes. I almost threw up in my mouth. I laughed, highlighting notes in my textbook. Did you let her? I asked, not looking up. For about 3 seconds, he replied. Then I remembered I have hands, and I used them to scratch my nose. She looked so disappointed. It was tragic. I shook my head. You're terrible. I'm a saint, he corrected. I'm giving her exactly what she wants. Attention. Validation. Hope. I paused. And then what? Wells lowered his arm, his eyes finding mine in the lamplight. And then, he said softly, I crush her. The way he said it, so casual, so matter-of-fact, sent a shiver down my spine. Wells was many things, but he wasn't cruel. Not usually. This was different. This was personal. Piper had come after me, after my rank, after my place in his life. And Wells, for all his flaws, didn't forgive. He didn't forget. He just waited. The second round of midterms arrived. Piper was ready. She had studied harder than ever. Her notes color-coded. Her practice tests perfect. She was going to beat me again. This time by more than 1 point. She was going to cement her position. Prove that her victory wasn't a fluke. I studied too. But differently. I knew Piper. I knew she played by the rules, memorized patterns, relied on her system to guide her. So I talked to Mr. Henderson, the AP physics teacher. I asked him to include one question. A question that couldn't be memorized. That required understanding, not just recall. He agreed. The day of the exam, Piper walked in like she owned the place. She caught my eye across the room, a smirk playing on her lips. Ready to lose again, Hadley? I didn't respond. I just opened my notebook, reviewing my notes one last time. The exam was brutal. 3 hours of non-stop testing. Questions designed to trip up even the best students. And then there was question 27. It was deceptively simple. Just 3 lines of text. But it required you to think differently, to apply concepts in a way no textbook had ever shown. I finished with 10 minutes to spare, my hand cramping, my brain exhausted. Piper finished 5 minutes after me, her expression confident, satisfied. When the scores were posted 3 days later, the entire school gathered around the bulletin board. Piper pushed her way to the front, her eyes scanning the list. And then she froze. I stood behind her, watching over her shoulder. There, at the top of the list, was my name, Hadley. Perfect score. Every question correct. Not a single point deducted. Below my name, in second place, was Piper. Her score wasn't just lower. It was catastrophic. She'd missed question 27 completely. And because she'd tried to force it into a pattern she recognized, she'd gotten the entire thing wrong. Her total score was barely passing. The silence was deafening. Piper stared at the paper, her face pale. her hands trembling. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "I studied everything. I knew every formula." I stepped up beside her, my voice low. "You knew the formulas, Piper, but you didn't understand the concepts. You memorized patterns, but you never learned to think." She turned to me, her eyes blazing. "You cheated," she hissed. That question was impossible. No one could have solved it. I raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Henderson designed it specifically to test understanding, not memorization. I solved it because I understand physics. You didn't because you only know how to play the game." Piper's face twisted. "You planned this. You and that teacher." I smiled. "No, I just knew what you'd do. I knew you'd try to force everything into a pattern, even when it didn't fit." The crowd around us was watching, whispering. Piper's humiliation was complete. But she wasn't done yet. She turned on her heel, storming away, leaving me standing there, victorious. But the real victory came later that day. I was at my locker, grabbing my books for the next class, when Wells appeared. He leaned against the locker next to mine, his arms crossed, a smirk on his lips. "Heard you crushed her," he said. I shrugged. "It wasn't that hard. Piper's predictable. She thinks she's playing a game, but she doesn't understand the rules." Wells's eyes darkened. "She's not done yet. I know. She's going to come back harder. She's going to try something else. And that's when we finish her." Wells reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek. "I've been waiting for this," he said. "For you to finally see her the way I do." I leaned into his touch, my eyes closing. "I always saw her, Wells. I just didn't think she was worth my time." His hand moved to the back of my neck, pulling me closer. "She's worth it now," he murmured, "because she made it personal." His lips brushed against my ear. "And nobody gets to make it personal with you but me." I shivered, my heart racing. This was new. This was dangerous. Wells and I had never been like this. Never crossed this line. But everything had changed. Piper had changed everything. She'd forced us to see what was always there. The tension, the attraction, the unspoken feelings we'd both been ignoring for years. Wells pulled back, his eyes searching mine. "Hadley," he said. "I know. Me too." The bell rang, breaking the moment. We pulled apart. The spell broken, but the connection stronger than ever. "I'll see you later," Wells said, his voice rough. "Yeah, later." I watched him walk away, my heart still racing. This was it. The beginning of something new. Something dangerous. Something real. Piper's next move came faster than expected. The next day, she cornered me in the library, her expression cold, calculated. "I need to talk to you," she said. I looked up from my book. "I'm listening." Piper sat across from me, her voice low. "I know what you're doing," she said. "You and Wells. You're working together to take me down." I didn't respond. I just waited. Piper's lips curled. "It won't work. I know about his past. I know about his family. I know things that could destroy him." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you talking about?" Piper leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I did my research, Hadley. Wells's father. The scandal. The money that disappeared. The people who got hurt. I know everything." My stomach dropped. This was bad. Wells's family had secrets. Dark secrets that could ruin them if they ever came out. And Piper knew. "How?" I asked. Piper smiled. "I have my sources. Let's just say that money can buy a lot of information." She stood up, looming over me. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to back off. You're going to let me have Wells. Or I'm going to destroy his family." I stared at her, my mind racing. This was blackmail. This was war. "You wouldn't," I said. "Try me," Piper replied. She walked away, leaving me sitting there, shaken. I went straight to Wells. I found him in the music room, practicing piano, his fingers flying across the keys. He stopped when he saw me, his expression concerned. "What's wrong?" I told him everything. Piper's threat, the blackmail, the secrets she knew. Wells listened, his face unreadable. When I finished, he was silent for a long time. Then he started to laugh. Not a happy laugh. A cold, dark laugh that sent chills down my spine. She thinks she has leverage, he said. She thinks she can use my family's past against me. I looked at him, confused. Wells, this is serious. She could destroy your family. Wells stood up, walking over to me. He took my hands in his eyes intense. Hadley, listen to me. My family's past isn't a secret. Not really. The people who matter know. The people who don't, they don't care. He squeezed my hands. Piper thinks she has a weapon, but she's holding a toy gun. I stared at him. You're not worried? Wells smiled. No, because she made a mistake. What mistake? She threatened you. He pulled me closer, his voice dropping. She threatened the one person I actually care about. And that's not something I can forgive. His eyes burned with intensity. We're going to end this, Hadley. Tonight. How? Wells's lips curled. She thinks she has information on my family. Let's show her what happens when you play with fire. That night, Wells and I put our plan into motion. We didn't confront Piper directly. Instead, we let her dig her own grave. Wells accidentally left his laptop unlocked in the library, with a folder labeled Family Documents visible on the desktop. Inside the folder was a single file, encrypted and password protected. Piper took the bait. She copied the file, thinking she had found the smoking gun. But the file wasn't what she thought it was. It was a trap. A beautifully designed trap that would destroy her. The next day, Piper cornered Wells in the hallway, her expression triumphant. I have the file, she said, her voice low enough that only we could hear. I know what's in it. And if you don't want everyone to know, you're going to do exactly what I say. Wells looked at her, his expression calm. What do you want? Piper smiled. I want you to break up with Hadley. I want you to tell everyone she cheated on her exams. I want you to destroy her reputation. Wells's eyes darkened. And if I don't? Piper held up her phone. Then I leak this file. Everyone will know what your family did. Wells was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. Go ahead, he said. Piper froze. What? I said go ahead, Wells repeated. Leak the file. Piper stared at him, confused. You're bluffing. I'm not, Wells said. Leak it. I dare you. Piper hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Fine. She opened the file, her fingers shaking. And then she saw what was inside. It wasn't a family scandal. It wasn't proof of corruption. It was a document. A document titled Piper's Academic Record. And inside was everything. Every test she'd ever taken. Every assignment she'd ever submitted. Every time she'd used her system to cheat, to manipulate, to get ahead. There were screenshots of her conversations with her system, logs of her love meter progress, records of every time she'd used her abilities to gain an unfair advantage. Piper's face went pale. This isn't. Wells's smile widened. You wanted to expose my family's secrets? He stepped closer, his voice dropping. I exposed yours instead. Piper backed away, her phone trembling in her hand. How did you? I have my sources too, Wells said. And unlike you, I actually know how to use them. He took her phone from her hand, deleting the file. But I'm not going to leak this, he said. I'm not going to destroy you the way you wanted to destroy me. Piper looked up at him, hope flickering in her eyes. You're not? No, Wells said. I'm going to give you a choice. He held up the phone. You can transfer out of this school. You can leave quietly, and no one will ever see this file. Or you can stay. And I'll send this to every college you've applied to, every scholarship committee, every person who's ever believed in you. Piper stared at him, her mind racing. This was it. The end of her game. The end of her story. I'll go, she whispered. Wells nodded. Good choice. He handed back her phone. Pack your bags, Piper. You have until Friday. Piper turned and walked away. Her shoulders slumped, her spirit broken. I watched her go, And for the first time, I heard it. A faint sound. Like a notification in my head. A system message. Game over. I smiled. So that's what it sounded like. Wells turned to me. His expression soft. Well, he said. That's that. I nodded. Yeah, that's that. The next few weeks were a blur. Piper transferred out, leaving behind whispers and rumors. Wells and I were left standing, victorious. But something had changed between us. The tension that had always been there was now impossible to ignore. We spent more time together, studying, hanging out, just being with each other. And the more time we spent together, the more I realized something. I didn't just care about Wells. I loved him. I had loved him for years. I just hadn't let myself admit it. One evening, we were sitting in my room. The door locked, the curtains drawn. Wells was sprawled across my bed, watching me study. You know, he said, you're really beautiful when you concentrate. I looked up, my heart racing. What? Wells sat up, his eyes intense. I said you're beautiful. I've always thought so. Even when you were ignoring me to study physics. I felt my face heat up. Wells. He moved closer, his hand reaching out to cut my cheek. I love you, Hadley. I've loved you since we were kids. I just never thought you'd feel the same way. I stared at him, my mind racing. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment I'd been afraid of. I love you too, I whispered. Wells's eyes widened. Really? Really? He pulled me close, his lips finding mine. The kiss was everything I'd imagined and more. It was gentle and passionate, familiar and new. Perfect. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. Wells rested his forehead against mine, his eyes searching mine. So what happens now? I smiled. Now we figure this out. Together. Wells grinned. Together. I like the sound of that. Graduation came and went. We both got into Harvard, just like we'd always planned. And in the fall, we moved to Cambridge together, starting a new chapter of our lives. Sometimes, I think about Piper. I wonder what happened to her, if she ever found what she was looking for. I hope she did. I hope she learned that life isn't a game, that people aren't prizes to be won. I hope she found her own happiness, even if it wasn't with Wells, because Wells was mine. He had always been mine. From the moment we met in that shared playpen, to the day he kissed me in my bedroom, to the day we walked across Harvard Yard together. We were walking hand in hand, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. Wells stopped, turning to face me. Game over, he said. We won. I smiled. Yeah, we won. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. I love you, Hadley. I love you too, Wells. And I meant it. I meant it with every part of me, every breath, every heartbeat. Because this wasn't a story. This was real. This was us. And we were going to be okay. We were going to be more than okay. We were going to be happy. Together. Forever.